My name is Avery Thompson. I'm 28 years old, and I run a cybersecurity company worth $37 million. Last month, Forbes called me the self-taught coder who's rewriting digital security. But 10 years ago, I was standing in my childhood bedroom, staring at my 17th college rejection letter, wondering what was so fundamentally broken inside me that not a single school in America wanted me. Turns out, nothing was broken in me. Everything was broken in them. I found the acceptance letters 3 months ago, 17 of them, unopened, hidden in a cardboard box in my parents' attic, tucked behind Christmas decorations that hadn't been touched in years. MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, full scholarships, full rides, some with handwritten notes from department heads saying they were thrilled to welcome me. All dated March and April 2016, all intercepted before I ever saw them. My parents hid them, deliberately, systematically, every single one. And the reason? So my younger sister Jessica could be the only success story in the Thompson family, so she could shine without my shadow, so they could pour every resource, every dollar, every ounce of pride into one golden child instead of splitting their attention between 2 daughters. They murdered my future to spotlight hers. But here's the thing about being buried alive. Sometimes you claw your way out stronger than anyone expected. Sometimes you build an empire from the dirt they threw on your grave. And sometimes, when they come crawling back 10 years later because their golden child's luster has tarnished and they're drowning in debt, you get to be the one who says no. This is the story of how I learned that the cruelest betrayals come wrapped in parental love, and how I turned the worst sabotage of my life into the foundation of my freedom. Before we dive into how I set myself free, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city below in the comments. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, back to the moment I realized my family had never been what I thought it was. Growing up, I thought I had the kind of family people wrote greeting cards about. My father, Robert Thompson, was a tax attorney, methodical, precise, always 3 steps ahead. He taught me chess when I was 6, and every Sunday morning we'd sit at the kitchen table with the chessboard between us, and he'd say, "Think 3 moves ahead, Avery. Always 3 moves ahead." I loved those mornings, the quiet, the strategy, the way he'd nod when I made a smart play, like I'd just solved a complex equation. My mother, Linda, was a high school English teacher, soft-spoken, gentle, always had a cup of chamomile tea in her hand. She taught me to love words, to find power in language. When I was 10, I told her I wanted to be a writer, and she smiled and said, "You can be anything you want, sweetheart. The world is wide open for you." And then there was Jessica, 2 years younger than me, blonde where I was brunette, bubbly where I was quiet. We shared a bathroom for 16 years. We fought over clothes and music and who got to use the car, normal sister stuff. But underneath it all, I thought we were solid. I thought we'd always have each other's backs. I remember the summer before my senior year of high school. Jessica was a sophomore, still trying to figure out if she wanted to do theater or soccer or debate. I was buried in SAT prep books, college brochures stacked on my desk like a paper tower. My dad came into my room one evening, sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the Princeton brochure in my hand. "You're going to do great things, Avery," he said. "You've got the kind of mind that changes the world." I remember feeling so full in that moment, so seen, so valued. Mom would leave little notes in my lunch bag during junior year. "Proud of you, brilliant girl. You're going to make us so proud. Can't wait to see where you end up." Jessica and I used to lie on the trampoline in the backyard at night, staring at the stars, talking about the future. She'd say, "I'm going to come visit you at whatever fancy school you get into, and you're going to introduce me to all the smart college guys." And I'd laugh and say, "Deal." I trusted them completely, all of them. That's what made the betrayal so suffocating. You don't put locks on doors you never thought would close. There was this one moment, I think it was October of my senior year, when I'd just gotten my SAT scores back, 1520. I was elated. I ran downstairs waving the paper, and my dad picked me up and spun me around like I was 7 years old again. "That's my girl," he said. "That's my brilliant girl." Mom cried, actually cried. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe and whispered, "You're going to have everything you've ever wanted, Avery. Everything." Jessica made me a congratulatory banner out of poster board and hung it in my room. "Avery the Genius," it said, with little stars drawn around my name. I kept that banner for 3 years. It was still hanging when I packed up my childhood bedroom to move into my first apartment, the one bedroom in Newark with the broken radiator and the landlord who never fixed anything. I took it down, folded it carefully, and put it in a box labeled High School Memories. Last month, I burnt it, because that celebration, that love, that pride, it was all performance, a magic trick. They were applauding with one hand while the other was already reaching for the letters they'd soon hide. The shift started small, so small I almost didn't notice. December of senior year, my mom stopped asking about my college essays. Just stopped. For months, she'd been my sounding board, reading drafts, offering feedback. Then one day she said she was too swamped with grading and maybe I should handle it on my own. It'll be good practice for independence. I thought it was reasonable. I was 17. I should be independent. January came and I submitted applications to 14 schools. MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, Princeton, Columbia, Cornell, University of Michigan, Georgia Tech, UT Austin, Purdue, RPI, WPI, and Rutgers as my safety school. Computer science programs, that's what I wanted. I'd been coding since I was 14. Little Python scripts at first, then full websites, then more complex stuff. I loved it, loved the logic, the problem solving, the way you could build something from nothing. My dad used to brag about it at family dinners. "Avery built the website for my firm," he'd say. "Saved me thousands of dollars. The kid's a natural." But in February, when I mentioned checking the mailbox every day for interview requests, my dad said, "Don't get your hopes up too high, Avery. These schools reject thousands of qualified kids every year. Just be realistic." Be realistic? I'd never heard him say that to me before. Jessica got her early acceptance to Harvard in December. We celebrated. Dinner at her favorite restaurant, cake, the whole thing. My parents cried with joy. Uncle Tom came over with flowers. It was beautiful, honestly. I was happy for her. She'd worked hard. She deserved it. But after that night, something changed in the air. My mom started saying things like, "Well, one Ivy League student in the family is already incredible," and "We're so grateful Jessica has such a clear path." My dad started talking about community college, not in a mean way, in a let's be practical way. "You know, Avery, there's no shame in starting at community college and transferring. Lots of successful people do it. It's financially smart." Financially smart. From the man who'd just written a $15,000 deposit check to Harvard. March arrived. Decision letters were supposed to start coming. I checked the mailbox every single day. My friends were getting thick envelopes, thin envelopes, emails, phone calls. I got nothing. Well, not nothing. I got thin envelopes, rejections. Rutgers, my safety school, the one I was overqualified for, sent a polite decline. We had an exceptionally competitive applicant pool this year. I cried in my room. Mom came in, rubbed my back, and said, "It's okay, honey. This just means you're meant for a different path." A different path. By April, I'd received 17 rejection letters. 17. Every single school. I remember sitting at the dinner table, numb, and my dad saying, "Maybe this is a sign, Avery. Maybe college isn't for everyone. You're smart, you'll figure it out. You don't need a degree to be successful." Jessica was quiet. She looked at me across the table with something like pity, and that hurt more than anything. I didn't understand. My grades were perfect, my test scores were excellent, my extracurriculars were solid. What had I done wrong? "Maybe your essays weren't strong enough," my mom suggested gently. "Maybe you came across as too intense in your applications," my dad added. "Maybe you're just not college material," I started to believe. The worst part, I never questioned them, not once. I trusted them so completely that when they told me I'd failed, I believed it. I internalized it. I carried it like a stone in my chest. They were my parents. Why would they lie? I found the letters on a Saturday, October 12th, 2024, 10:47 a.m. My grandmother had passed away 3 weeks earlier, and I'd volunteered to help clean out my parents' attic. They were planning to sell the house. Downsizing, they said. They needed help sorting through decades of accumulated memories. Jessica didn't come. She was too busy with her practice. The medical practice that was failing, though I didn't know that yet. I was alone in the attic, surrounded by boxes labeled holiday decor and old tax returns and kids' school stuff. Dust everywhere. The smell of mothballs and old cardboard. I was about to leave when I noticed a box in the far corner, unmarked, shoved behind a plastic bin of Christmas lights. I pulled it out. It was sealed with packing tape, yellowed with age. I opened it. Inside were envelopes. Lots of them. All addressed to me. All from universities. All unopened. My hands started shaking before my brain even processed what I was seeing. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The return address was printed in clean, professional lettering. The envelope was thick. I tore it open, carefully at first, then frantically. "Dear Avery Thompson, congratulations. It is our great pleasure to offer you admission to MIT. Full scholarship, full ride, Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science." A handwritten note at the bottom from a professor. "Your application essay on ethical AI development was one of the most thoughtful we've received in years. We're thrilled to welcome you to our program." Dated March 28th, 2016. I couldn't breathe. I opened another envelope. Stanford. Same thing. Accepted. Full scholarship. Your coding portfolio is exceptional. Berkeley. Accepted. Scholarship. Carnegie Mellon. Accepted. Merit-based aid covering everything. Princeton, Columbia, Cornell, Georgia Tech. Every single one. Accepted. Scholarships, honors programs, personal notes from admissions officers. 17 letters. 17 acceptances. Not a single rejection. I sat on that attic floor, surrounded by the futures I'd never been allowed to have, and something inside me shattered. They knew. They knew all along. I don't remember walking downstairs. I don't remember much except the sound of my own heartbeat and the feel of the envelopes clutched in my shaking hands. My parents were in the living room. Mom was reading. Dad was working on his laptop. Normal. Peaceful. Like they hadn't committed the most profound act of sabotage imaginable. I stood in the doorway and said, "I found them." My mother looked up. Her face drained of color. My father closed his laptop slowly. "Avery." "I hid them," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. I hid my acceptance letters. All of them. Silence. 17 schools wanted me. 17. Full scholarships. MIT, Stanford, schools I dreamed about, and you hid the letters. You let me think I was rejected. You let me think I wasn't good enough. My mother stood up. Sweetheart, please, let us explain. Explain what? I was shaking now. Explain how you stole my future? Explain how you let me cry myself to sleep thinking I was a failure? Explain how you sabotaged me so Jessica could be the golden child? That's not fair, my father said, his voice hard. We made a difficult decision as parents. We had to think about what was best for the family. Best for the family? I repeated. You destroyed me for the family. You were always so independent, my mom said, and she was crying now. You were always so resourceful. We knew you'd be fine without college. But Jessica, she needed the structure, the support. We couldn't afford to send both of you to expensive schools, and Jessica's path was more delicate. So you chose her, I said. You chose her, and you let me believe I wasn't wanted anywhere. We were protecting your sister's confidence, my dad said. If you'd gotten into MIT and she'd only gotten into Harvard, she would have felt like a failure. We needed to keep the family harmonious. One child succeeding strongly is better than two children competing. I stared at him, this man who'd taught me chess, who'd told me to think 3 moves ahead. He'd been thinking 3 moves ahead, just not for me. Get out, I said. Avery, get out of my life, both of you. I left. I got in my car with those 17 letters on my passenger seat, and I drove back to San Francisco, and I didn't look back. I'm gonna stop here for a second. If this story is resonating with you at all, or if you've ever felt the pain of being misunderstood by the people who are supposed to love you most, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really lets me know that sharing these hard stories is worth it. The first week, I didn't eat, didn't sleep, just sat in my apartment staring at those letters, reading and rereading them until the words blurred. My phone rang constantly. Mom, Dad, Jessica, Uncle Tom. I didn't answer. Jessica left a voicemail on day 3. Avery, please talk to me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Mom and Dad told me you got rejected because you weren't a good fit for those schools. They said you were happy about it, that you wanted to go a different route. Please believe me. I deleted it. Uncle Tom called, left a message. Your parents made a tough call, Avery, but they did what they thought was right. You have to understand, family dynamics are complicated. Jessica was more fragile. You were always the strong one. Don't throw away your family over this. I blocked his number. My dad sent an email. Subject line, "We need to talk." I archived it without reading. The betrayal wasn't just the letters. It was deeper than that. It was every lie they'd told me for 10 years. Every time they'd asked about my business and pretended to be proud while secretly believing I only succeeded because they'd had no other choice but to let me fail into success. Every holiday dinner where they praised Jessica's medical career while treating mine like a happy accident. They'd let me think I was broken for a decade. I started going through my old coding journals, the notebooks I'd kept since I was 18, documenting every problem I'd solved, every program I'd written, every step of my self-taught education. I'd started keeping them that first month after all the rejections, when I was working retail during the day and teaching myself to code at night in my tiny apartment. Page 1. Dated May 2016, written in cramped handwriting. If I'm not smart enough for college, I'll prove I'm smart enough for something else. That sentence gutted me. I hadn't needed to prove anything. I'd already been accepted. I'd already won. They just never told me. I called my lawyer,
Emma Rodriguez, the woman who'd helped me incorporate my business 3 years ago. I told her everything.
She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Avery, this is one of the most disturbing things I've heard in my entire career." "Can I sue them?" I asked. "Possibly," she said. "Emotional distress, interference with educational opportunities, fraud. But litigation is expensive, lengthy, and emotionally draining. Are you sure that's the path you want?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I don't want to give them any more of my time. I don't want them in my life at all. I want them gone, completely." "Then we can draft a cease and desist letter," Emma said. "Make it clear that you want no contact, ever." "Do it," I said. The letter went out on October 20th, certified mail, legal and binding. My father called anyway. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. "You're overreacting, Avery. We're still your parents. You can't just cut us out. That's not how family works." That was the moment I realized they still didn't understand what they'd done. They thought this was a disagreement, a fight that would blow over. They didn't understand that they'd severed something irreparable. Jessica showed up at my office 2 weeks later. My assistant tried to stop her, but she pushed past and walked into my office like she had every right. "Avery, please," she said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd aged since I'd last seen her. Tired, stressed. She was 32 now, and her medical practice was struggling. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd made some bad business decisions, taken out loans she couldn't pay back. Mom and Dad said, "I don't care what they said," I interrupted. "You were my sister. You should have questioned it. You should have asked me. But you didn't, because it was easier not to. Because their story made you the star. And who questions that?" She started crying. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "You didn't have to mean it. You just had to benefit from it. And you did, for a decade." "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "I want nothing from you. I want you to leave my office and never come back." She left. I sat at my desk afterward, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. The kind that comes from finally setting a boundary that should have been set years ago. Healing didn't look the way I thought it would. I thought it would involve confrontation, closure, some big dramatic moment where my parents apologized and I forgave them and we all moved forward as a family. But that's not what healing was. Healing was therapy. 3 sessions a week for 6 months with Dr. Patricia Chen, a trauma specialist who helped me understand that what my parents had done wasn't just wrong, it was abuse. Psychological abuse, sabotage, a deliberate dismantling of my self-worth. "They stole your trajectory," Dr. Chen said during one session. "They didn't just hide letters. They stole years of your life where you believed you weren't good enough. That's not a mistake. That's calculated." Hearing someone else say it, someone objective, professional, helped. Healing was also letting myself grieve, not just for the education I'd lost, but for the family I thought I had. I'd spent 28 years believing my parents loved me unconditionally. Learning that their love had conditions, that it was conditional on me not outshining Jessica, broke something fundamental. I grieved that. I let myself be angry, really properly angry. I bought a punching bag for my apartment. I hit it until my knuckles bled, and I cried until I couldn't breathe, and then I hit it some more. Healing was building a life that had nothing to do with them. I'd already done that in a way. My business was mine, built from scratch without their help. But now I doubled down. I hired more staff. I landed 3 major contracts with Fortune 500 companies. I got written up in TechCrunch, Wired, Forbes. Every success felt like reclaiming a piece of myself.
I also started a coding scholarship, the Avery Thompson Scholarship for Self-Taught Programmers, $20,000 a year given to someone who'd taught themselves to code without formal education. Someone who'd been told they weren't good enough but proved everyone wrong. The first recipient was a 19-year-old kid from Detroit named Marcus, who'd learned Python in the public library because his high school didn't have computer classes. He cried when I told him he'd won. I cried too. That felt like healing. I reconnected with old friends from high school, people I'd lost touch with over the years. Turns out, a lot of them had noticed something was off in my family. "Your parents always seemed really focused on Jessica," said one friend carefully. "We thought maybe you were okay with it." I wasn't, but I hadn't known I was allowed not to be. I also did something I'd never done before. I framed one of the acceptance letters, the MIT one. I hung it in my office right next to my Forbes feature. Not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but as a reminder of what I'd always been. Good enough. More than good enough. Dr. Chen asked me once if I'd consider reconciliation. "No," I said. "They haven't apologized. They haven't acknowledged what they did. They just want me back in their lives because Jessica's struggling and they need money. That's not family. That's convenience." "And if they did apologize?" she asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know, honestly. Maybe someday, but not now. Not until I'm sure I'm healed enough that their words can't hurt me anymore. That day hasn't come yet, and I'm okay with that. March 2025. 6 months after I found the letters, my lawyer called. "Avery, your father's attorney reached out. Your family is in significant financial trouble. Jessica's medical practice declared bankruptcy. Your parents took out a second mortgage to help her, and now they're facing foreclosure. They're asking if you'd be willing to provide financial assistance." I was quiet for a long moment. "What did you tell them?" I asked. "I told them I'd relay the message," Emma said. "But Avery, you don't owe them anything. You know that, right?" I did know that, intellectually. But there's a difference between knowing something and feeling it. "They stole my future," I said, "and now they want me to fund theirs." "Yes," Emma said simply. "Tell them no," I said. "Tell them I'm not interested in providing assistance to people who sabotaged me. Tell them I hope they find a solution, but it won't involve me." Emma paused. "Do you want it worded more diplomatically?" "No," I said. "I want it worded exactly like that." The letter went out that afternoon. My mother called 2 hours later. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. "Avery, please, we're desperate. We made a mistake, okay? We made a terrible mistake, and we've regretted it every day since you found out. But we're still your parents. We still love you. Please don't let us lose our home. Please." I listened to that voicemail 3 times. Then I deleted it. Because here's what I'd learned in therapy. An apology that comes only when someone needs something isn't an apology, it's manipulation. If they'd apologized 6 months ago, when I first confronted them, maybe things would be different. If they'd shown genuine remorse, genuine understanding of what they'd done, maybe I'd feel differently. But they hadn't. They'd only reached out when they needed money. That told me everything I needed to know. Jessica sent a text message. "Avery, I know you hate me, but please help Mom and Dad. They're going to lose everything. I'll pay you back, I swear." I didn't respond. Uncle Tom tried one more time. He sent an email. "You've become cruel, Avery. Success has made you cold. Your parents loved you the best way they knew how, and you're punishing them for one mistake. That's not the girl I knew growing up." I replied to that one. "You're right, Uncle Tom. I'm not the girl you knew growing up. That girl believed that family was supposed to protect you. That girl trusted her parents to want the best for her. That girl spent 10 years thinking she wasn't good enough because the people who were supposed to love her let her believe a lie. I'm not that girl anymore. And if that makes me cruel, I'll take it." He didn't write back. 3 weeks later, my parents' house went into foreclosure. I heard about it through a mutual acquaintance. They moved into a small apartment across town. Jessica moved back in with them, unable to afford her own place anymore. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, just nothing. That's when I knew I'd actually healed, because their consequences didn't affect me anymore. Their choices were theirs. Their outcomes were theirs. I was free.
It's been almost a year since I found those letters. I still have them, all 17 of them. They're in a fireproof safe in my apartment, along with my coding journals and the documentation of everything that happened. Not because I need them anymore, but because they're proof. Proof that I was always good enough. Proof that the problem was never me. People ask me sometimes if I regret how things turned out, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I think I was too harsh. And here's my answer. No. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret setting boundaries with people who hurt me, even if those people are my parents. I don't regret choosing myself for once. Would my life have been different if I'd gone to MIT? Absolutely. I would have had professors, resources, a network. I would have had the validation of a degree from one of the best schools in the world. But I also would have been under my parents' thumb for 4 more years. I would have been financially dependent on them. I would have been shaped by their expectations and their control. Instead, I taught myself. I built myself. I became successful on my own terms, in my own time, with my own hands. And nobody can take that away from me. My company now employs 47 people. We do cybersecurity for major tech firms, banks, healthcare systems. We're growing. I'm building something that matters, something that helps people. And I did it all without them. That's not revenge. That's reclamation. There's a line I keep in my journal now. I wrote it on the 1-year anniversary of finding the letters. They buried me. They didn't know I was a seed. Because that's what happened. They tried to bury me, to hide me, to make me smaller so Jessica could be bigger. But all they did was plant me in soil where I learned to grow wild and free, without their pruning, without their control. I'm not angry anymore. That's the strangest part. I was furious for months, rage that burned so hot I thought it would consume me. But therapy helped. Time helped. Building a life I actually loved helped. Now, when I think about my parents, I mostly feel sad. Sad that they were so afraid of both their daughters succeeding that they sabotaged one. Sad that they chose scarcity over abundance. Sad that they'll never know the version of me that could have loved them if they'd just let me bloom. But that sadness doesn't control me anymore. I have a life, a real one, with people who celebrate my success instead of fearing it, with friends who knew me at my lowest and stuck around, with a business that challenges me and fulfills me and lets me help other people who've been told they're not good enough. And I have myself, the self I rebuilt from scratch, the self that knows its worth now, not because anyone gave me permission to be valuable, but because I proved it to myself. That's the real victory. Not the money, not the Forbes article, not even the satisfaction of saying no when they asked for help. The victory is that I'm free. Free from their narrative about who I was supposed to be. Free from the weight of their expectations and their sabotage. Free to be exactly who I am, without apology, without permission. Last week, a journalist asked me what advice I'd give to someone who'd been betrayed by their family. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, "You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, not even family, especially not family who gave you the matches and told you it was love." That's it.
That's the lesson. You don't owe loyalty to people who destroyed your future. You don't owe forgiveness to people who aren't sorry. You don't owe anything to anyone except yourself. And sometimes the most radical act of self-love is walking away from people who tell you you're being selfish for protecting yourself. I walked away, and I've never looked back. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you? How did you rebuild trust? What's one thing you learned about yourself after a betrayal? Share one moment in your healing journey that changed everything. Down in the comments, I read every single one. This was another story from Revenge Room, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. Please don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next transformation.